Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fury, and with me is my super crook.
I can go for that.
Yeah.
My Electro Man.
Ooh.
It's fair.
Does that mean I just zap the shit out of a mess of people in a swimming pool?
Right.
And with us, as always, the lovely and talented, our Baroness, our
Birthday girl
episode today. Here's Jen.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the birthday wishes. It is my pleasure to introduce a returning guest and a dear, dear friend, Mr. JR Cillian Green. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
How is
welcome
everyone?
back.
Thank you. Last time was Lock and Key, which I was, deeply familiar with, and this is a one that I learned all about as we went.
Right?
I need to give you a quick update for Lock and Key. We are only barely scratching the surface of the new season, or season 2, because of all the crap that we watch, both for this show and everything else. For some reason, Lock and Key makes Jen so tense that the entirety of her neck and shoulders is and so we have to have her good and relaxed before we can start any episode.
Well,
all I'm gonna ask is so Lock and Key makes you tense, but brand new cherry flavor didn't, because that was wild experience. By the way, one of the best horror shows I've watched in a long time.
I agree. So it's different because brand new cherry flavor is just wacky.
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre, and I don't know what it is about that doesn't make Lock and Key is just I hate to say it, it's so slowly paced, but the bad things are happening.
The direction that it's going.
Thanks, Joe Hill.
Yeah.
yeah. That is very true. And as a Joe Hill fan, even his writing, even his short stories, which are short, he'll pace in such a way that you're like, just drop the hammer, would you?
Just do it already.
Well, for Christmas this year, one of the things I was getting Jen is there was a deal on AMC Plus, which also has America as part of its thing. So I was like, oh, okay, and they had a deal, and I did not read the fine print, and so I signed up for 2 years.
Beautiful.
Paid all up in front.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's that's cool. We have it for 2 years.
Again.
Yeah. But one of the things I noticed going through there is they have the Nosferatu show from Joe Hill.
Yeah.
Is on there. So
I didn't know that. I'm super stoked.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to check that out.
I haven't watched that yet, and I love Joe Hill, and I haven't watched that one yet. So who the hell knows?
Well, time for you to visit and binge time.
Yeah,
that's true.
There you go. So anyway, we are here today to talk about Jupiter's Legacy, and Bear, I'm gonna kind of
not to be confused with Jupiter Ascending, which was awful.
Which is very different.
Indeed, yes. It was awful. There you go.
Yeah,
Bear and I are best friends, by the way.
But I am going to hand hosting duties over to Bear, because this is kind of his baby.
I've been loving this series ever since I saw the trailer on Netflix. I was just like, this looks absolutely amazing, and why wouldn't anybody want to watch this? And immediately jumped on. Was just like, Josh, this has got to go on the list. We got to watch this, Josh.
And I was like, is this even a comic? And you're like, let me find out.
Boom, Wikipedia link. Yes. Mark Miller. We've done Mark Miller, right?
We have. In fact, Mark Miller is our Kingsman writer. And then on the Rec Conversations side, we have done our very first episode was Civil War, which was written by him. And as we talked about a little bit before the show with JR, this man's all over the board when it comes to what he writes.
Yeah.
Well, but that makes sense to me now. Like, Jupiter's Legacy makes more sense to me now that you've connected those dots. Okay.
A clue.
So, Barry, you were extremely excited that it was coming out. You binged the shit out of it, and then
immediately, like the first weekend it popped up, I was like, boom, done.
Yeah. And before it was on a list for our show, you were like, guys, you need to watch this. Guys, I need to give a little background. You are not the person that pushes shows.
No,
I am the
not.
person
Yes.
that pushes shows usually when we watch something and I'm like, Bear, have you seen this? Because it's amazing. So it's very rare for you to be like, watch this. No, seriously. Have you watched this yet?
Yeah.
I saw you 3 days ago. Have you watched
Have you seen this
yet?
Usually you're the one that's looking at me and is just like, have you seen the new episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
I was like, no, I was going to get to, no, you got to watch this. This is great, and
So we had a lovely evening. As we've said on the show, we very rarely binge. We watch 1, maybe 2 episodes if Jen is starting to get more into the binge. Like our current watch of Doom Patrol, she was like, one more for season 3.
But Brendan Fraser, I mean, come on.
Yes.
But it's the whole cast.
Yeah. But we just put in a nice gazebo in the backyard. We had a TV out there. We got some charcuterie. We got some wine. And we just were like, okay, well, of the things that we're watching, because I think that was even a wrestling night. And we were like, okay, well, we'll watch this and then we'll go watch wrestling. We did not watch wrestling that night.
You did not watch wrestling?
We did not watch wrestling that night.
See, that's how good it was, people.
Yes.
Josh did not watch wrestling.
Yeah. And see, I don't know what days are. So to me, the advent of streaming was ideal because, as JR can attest, because he used to be part of my TV party, when you had to watch a show when it was on.
Yes, kids. Those of you that are listening to us now.
So
you used to only be able to watch a show on a certain day of the week.
Right. And
once
then
a week.
If you didn't see it then,
it was gone forever.
You didn't get to see it. So streaming is like my ideal thing. But it also kind of adds to the miasma of difficulty in what day it is. Because I'm just like, I don't care what day. It makes me feel like a queen. I can be like, I want to watch this thing.
Yeah.
What do you mean it hasn't come out yet?
Right. And she's very upset. On Monday, she's like, I would like to watch The Masked Singer. And I'm like, well, that comes out on Wednesday. And she's like,
that's bullshit.
Fie unto thee. So, JR, we threw this at you with you never reading the comic or watching the show.
No.
It just seemed like a JR episode, kind of.
Which one did you do first?
I started, I did both at the same time. I started the television show and was about halfway through and was like, oh my God, I haven't read this yet. And it's this week. So I crammed in reading it and I finished it last night. So it was like watching episodes and going back and forth between the two. And I finished it last night early in the morning and I almost wrote Josh and said, did you send me the right comic? Because this is what is happening here?
So different.
Yeah.
It's so different.
I mean, it's got some similar story points, but it is very, very different.
They kind of got we kind of got an Umbrella Academy syndrome going on, where the stories were kind of got to the same point eventually, kind of, but like the comic book just went like, oh, boom, we're there.
Yeah, it was a lot quicker.
Speaking of the Umbrella Academy, I think that probably controversial, but I think the show does an infinitely better job of getting characters developed because they have time to do it. Yes. And like in the comics, it's like snap your fingers and you're like through like 3 plot lines, and I'm like,
Umbrella Academy is like, understand this is the character, and we'll give you some clues, context clues as you see them make decisions, but we're not going to give you any development beyond that.
Right.
Well, I love the show probably more than I should, but like it's one of my favorite shows. So
I agree.
Same.
Yeah, totally agreed. So yeah, like I said, we watched it real quick in 2 days, actually, 2 different sittings, which is unreal for us.
This is par for the course for me, but
it's me. Let's be fair. It's not you. You could sit down and watch the entire show. It's me.
It's true. I will say the thing that I noticed about the comic, and again, we don't do spoilers on the show for the comic, we allude to things, and this is not much of a spoiler. The motivations are very different, and
the relationships are very different.
Weirdly so.
Yeah.
Because in the show, which we'll give full spoilers for, Brandon is the catalyst. Brandon killing Black Star, supposedly, as becomes a mystery point of it, is what kicks everything off, because in the code there is you do not kill. The code you do not kill part of the comic really doesn't come in for quite some time. It is the we don't get involved in politics, which they tie.
Is the high point.
Right, which they tie into. We need to go to President Obama and stop the Great Recession, which is a weird choice.
It did not age well, really.
No, it did not.
It did not.
No.
It did not. And I mean, to add to that, not spoiling the I guess the comic, some of these characters, like, they are completely different. Like, I was like, who are you?
Right.
Between the two. And for example, I texted everyone yesterday and was like, I have absolutely no sympathy for Chloe in the show. And then I read the comic and was like, this is a completely different person.
Yeah.
Like an absolutely completely different person. I understand her here.
Yeah.
This makes a lot more sense.
But I did feel like they were trying to go there with Chloe in the show, but they just didn't. They were not successful.
Yeah,
they were not.
We had the episode where her father is sitting there, and they're both sitting at her kitchen table, and they're having this conversation about, listen, we always end up getting into a fight, and I have to be me, and you have to be you, and until one of us decides to not be, we're just gonna fight.
Yeah.
The show depended on you. Okay, I'm trying to structure this in my mind because I have the thought, and I'm just going to say it right ahead, and then if we need explanation, I'll go into it. Chloe's Khloe Kardashian. The whole idea is fame and being under that umbrella, and that is the way that Chloe is the way that she is she's a Kardashian, basically.
Well, time out. I'm going to interject that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Khloe Kardashian is not as self-destructive as Chloe Jupiter's Legacy is.
Chloe Sampson, right?
Yeah.
What it would be.
Chloe Sampson.
Yeah. So yes, I see that, but I feel like Khloe Kardashian isn't just like, I feel like there's a plan there. For Chloe Sampson from Jupiter's Legacy, it's just like, this is what I'm doing because this is what I can do.
Well, I mean, and if I, in the myriad of things that once I get a programmable tattoo that I could just change on whim, one of the things that I will walk around with is the words, everything I know about the Kardashians, I learned against my will. But early, like, it's the idea of the spotlight being on you from a young age. The show dealt a lot more with celebrity, superhero as celebrity. Yeah. And that is what Chloe's meant. She is the vehicle to which we are supposed to see the daughter of a superhero. Brandon, I mean, you see the expectations part of it, of somebody that actually gives a shit about what his father says, and in fact models his entire life around what his father says. Right. Chloe is meant to be the opposite of that. And it's very different than the comic.
Because Brandon is
absolutely 100% different in the comic. And Brandon in the show doesn't get a lot of time for a while. He's like, and lest you forget, Brandon exists. Here is a scene with him, right? And
you remember he's the reason that all of this is happening,
right?
Remember anyone here remember this? I also will say, and it's probably because I was just reading and watching at the same time. I got to the end of one of the episodes and was like, "What funeral are they going to?" That's how scattered in some ways I felt about things, and so I was like, I need to go back and watch that battle scene all over again because okay, this
people died and he didn't even realize really that
he didn't even realize it. Okie doke. But the Chloe in the show felt very poor little rich girl to me,
right? And
I couldn't handle it after a while because she had that scene between her and her father at the breakfast table, like, when he comes by to visit her at the apartment. That one made a lot of sense. And I was like, okay, so we're going to have some character shift here. We're going to see something, start to move in her head. And it didn't for the longest time. And I was like,
well, do you feel like they kind of took Brandon, and okay, this is a little tiny spoiler for the comic, Brandon's character in the comic, and switch that to Chloe?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Well, they're both fuck ups in the comic.
Well, they are, but in the comic, the whole Chloe on the TV show is basically Brandon.
Yes, that's true.
And Brandon is more of the substance user. I mean, not really, but he's he's definitely, when you see Chloe at a party in the comic, it's very different than Brandon at, partying it up.
Yeah.
And he feels super easy. I mean, he is super easy to manipulate and all this other kind of stuff. And I think that's one of my interesting, I don't know if complaints the right word, but confusion in the comic is that Brandon goes from sun to like down this dark alley in like a snap of your fingers in the comic.
Yeah.
And in the show,
everything happens faster in the comic.
Well,
I mean, it's
without
wild
really,
fast.
Yeah, wild fast, and not like Brandon's actions in the comic, and I'm not going to go into it, but like the extreme that it goes to, there is no basis.
Yeah.
He went from zero to psychopath real fast.
Right.
Well, and I mean, this probably is a little bit of a spoiler, but the moment is his uncle whispers in his ear like poison words.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Brandon is ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in a heartbeat. And maybe it's because of like mental manipulation, but that's never like drawn in. So how would you know? So, but it's like 0 to sociopath in seconds. And I'm like, hold please.
And I wonder,
what is happening?
I wonder if that's intentional because Brandon's father cannot be mentally manipulated by his brother, Brandon's uncle.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wonder if that's like
a trait that was passed down.
Right. Or if that's supposed to be a seed of doubt. Like, is this Brandon actually just being a fucking psychopath? Or are we seeing proof that he does not have that ability from his father?
Right.
Yeah, that could be it.
Of course, we also see everybody having way more powers in the comic book too than they did in the TV show, because like Utopian has just powers left and right.
Yeah.
Well, in the comic, I got I couldn't track him. I mean, I was like, okay, so he's got super strength and he's got eye stuff and maybe where did telekinesis show up here? Super hearing and in the show they have all of those Superman-like qualities, right? Because it's obviously a parallel.
Right.
But I was like, okay, I understand your power list. And in the comic, I was like, I don't understand like what your power list, and especially with Brandon, because Brandon barely uses any before
I see that as Brandon is still discovering his powers and things are still like kind of unlocking for him. There's no way. Well, Bear might have seen it, but I kind of compared it to Sky High, which was
I love Sky High.
Let's
just get on it. Sky High is one of my favorite movies of this nature.
Right, but there's a scene in that's I didn't know you could fly, and the guy goes, neither did I.
Wasn't that also the one of the girl whose only superpower is to turn into a hamster?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Then I have seen
And Bruce Campbell's in it. 2 members of Kids in the Hall are in it.
Linda Carter's in it.
Yeah,
Linda Carter's in it.
It is fantastic. Yeah. Yes.
And like everyone at that school sort of has discovered their stuff, but like the son of the most powerful superheroes has not. And discovers them as they get. It's just a great. If you haven't seen it, like just do it.
Pop on Sky High. It is. At the beginning, you're going to be like, "This is a Disney Channel," because it was a Disney Channel movie.
No, it was not a Disney Channel. It was in theaters. I went saw it in theaters.
Really?
Yeah, it was in theaters, and it starts off in that very Disney Channel way, where you're like, okay, everything's cheerful and blah blah blah,
right?
And then it turns into a really well done superhero story.
And if you are like a B movie actor fan, hold on to your butts, because like the entire staff of this school,
by the way.
Yeah, thank you. The entire like staff of this school is like Bruce Campbell and Dave Foley, and like they show up and they own their scenes. Like I still love to yell at people, sidekick. But anyway, getting off of Sky High, and back to Jupiter's Legacy, which is a very different,
very thing.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we talk about the code. because at the very center of why I adored this show was the code and the idea that sometimes bitches gotta die. We talked about it in the Batman episode that we did about how many lives can Bruce save by just killing the Joker or letting the Joker die in some areas.
But I have opinions about that, so many opinions about that. So many opinions with footnote this and then put it, to get us back on track. I don't think the reason that Bruce doesn't kill Joker, not because he has a code about killing the Joker, because without the Joker he doesn't exist.
Period.
So
absolutely,
yeah.
And so that's the problem. And really, Gotham could be saved if Bruce got fucking goddamn therapy and then gave half of his money away. There you are.
Right.
But no. Let me. I will get off of my anti-Batman soapbox and continue back.
Well, then let's jump on a Superman soapbox and say, is the Utopian a better Superman than Superman?
Well, possibly, because the Utopian started out as a human and understood.
Actually, was a human. Had human frailties.
Right, and understood them, and actually saw other humans being terrible and made choices based on that as a human before he got
right. Other than what Superman fans will say is that, well, Clark, he was a human in this issue for a week.
No.
No.
Yeah, great. That's awesome.
No, I will push back a little because I am a Superman fan, but I think the times when Superman is best drawn or best done is when he is sort of separated a little bit from that. I am just now reading Up in the Sky, which I think is a fantastic one. When they redid Action Comics and he was a college kid, that section where he was struggling as a starving artist, starving journalist, and sort of living in that world, very different Superman style, and it was really, really well done. But I agree with you. The Utopian is coming at it from a very different angle of, if we do this, what happens next?
Well, also, I think it's important to note, because both, the comic actually points it out more, but it was brought up in the show, is the Utopian completely put his faith in these aliens that gave them the powers, and he believes that what he wants to do is the will of the aliens without questioning why.
Oh, so we have evangelical Christians.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting corollary.
For more on this, pick up Invincible.
But yeah, I mean, there's no discourse about okay, we've been given these powers and we're doing these things, but what's the end game? Why?
Right.
Let's pull back and look at the bigger picture. Why did these aliens choose us? What is their goal? What's happening?
Obviously weren't the only ones that were chosen.
Right.
But they were just the
only
first
ones.
Yeah, they were the first ones to succeed.
Right. Which doesn't
at all. They don't. They barely
they don't explain it at all.
They barely gloss over the island and what happened there.
Yeah, in the comics, they're like, and island and aliens, and we're done. And I was like,
it was like
ta-da!
4 panels, I think, and that was it.
Yeah.
Could we go back and talk about the fact that you just put in some very sci-fi tall gray aliens in white robes and just sort of that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
okay.
So we're just gonna move on from here because
it's not
important.
I mean, yes. I mean, the other question maybe I just missed something, which is very, very possible. The other thing I just had in the back of my mind is, okay, so these people go to an island and we now know about their children, right? This is this section, right?
Right. Because we're bouncing around.
We're bouncing around in both. There are so many other people with superpowers. Did this unleash something, or did everyone go to this island?
That was one of my main questions too.
Absolutely, my question.
And so I was like, okay, all right. I mean, I got all of the children one, but you meet Nick in the show, and I'm like, where did you get yours?
So this is where I'm going to bring up something that we just watched this morning, because it was released really under the radar. There is an anime that was released on Netflix called Super Crooks. It is in the same universe as Jupiter's Legacy. and it really focuses more on the other side, on the supervillains. But at one point, the character gets powers.
That really at one point, at the very beginning. Right. We're talking first episode.
And his mom, who is a woman of questionable morals.
She is white trailer trash, living in a...
He doesn't know who his father is.
Yeah, because she has several men over.
Right, and it is heavily implied that his father must have then had superpowers. But that doesn't make sense. The only 5 people that went to the island got powers.
Well, it was, I think, more like 7 in this series.
It's 7. I mean, it's Will and George and the main character whose name is just complete. Yeah. 2 or 3 other. I think it's a total of 7. But in both of them, if you look at the panel, there's like in the comics, there's 7, and I think it's the same group of people in both.
Sheldon, Walter, Grace, Richard, Fitz, George, and Jack.
Yeah,
is the comic.
And I think it's the same group. I
want to say it is.
But, but so potentially what could happen is, because some of them didn't see eye to eye with the Utopian, whatever. But, generations of people happen. And if you're not so moral or monogamous, there could be a shit ton of kids out there.
This is true. Especially when you take the best friend, Skyfox.
Yeah.
And just let him go run amok when he was already kind of a ladies' man to begin with, and now I'm just going to go sleep with all of these groupies.
I would like it to be known that I mean, here's your gay man on the other side of the world kind of person. I mean, Skyfox could do all kinds of things to me. So
but it would not result.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what superhero semen can do.
Well, here's the interesting thing about Skyfox at least in the show, right? I'm just going to go with in the show, is for those first 4 or 5 episodes, he loses his fortune and all this other kind of stuff. His care for Sheldon is very deep. And there's this lovingness to him that I really appreciated, especially knowing that, because they make the statement, knowing that we're going to have a switch at some point in time. It wasn't like he was always some kind of loose cannon that went off and does kind of stuff. He had a very big heart, and I will give them that one of your main villains is not just some nut job. It's really dealing with.
Well,
I almost got to the point where there was subtext that he was actually in love with Sheldon.
Well, but I also got to the point where I'm like, is he really the villain? Like, how much of this, and also, can I just, as a side note, say every time I hear Skyfox, I think, do a barrel roll.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Yes. Thank you, my children.
Thank you, your children.
Yes. But I always, once I understood the duplicity of brother, what's his name?
Walter.
Thank you. Once the duplicity was exposed in the TV show of what Walter was planning and doing, once we saw the end of the TV show, I was like, is Skyfox really the villain here?
Oh, I absolutely did not believe this. I believe that Skyfox figured out that Walter was the bad guy and he bailed.
Right. But I think that because he loved Utopian, separated
in
himself.
A platonic or romantic way, because I read it both ways.
Right. It doesn't matter. He just cared enough about the Utopian.
And he knew that he'd never turn against his brother.
Right.
So he bailed.
Right.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Yeah, I think Skyfox is much more sympathetic, and
then Walter comes in and uses that in the fact that he bailed to turn that turn him into the
narrative.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but it also is nice to see that Chloe is getting together with like generationally they're coming back together again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know what it is, but on the past 3 episodes that we've done, I'm like, I have the woman who's seeing math in the air. Like, I see conspiracy theory. I see subtext. I'm getting my superpower.
You're getting your superpower. I mean, yeah, and this is something that both the comic and the show too. Although in the comic it's a panel.
Right.
Walter is clearly the manipulative one.
Yeah.
And in the show, you get that pretty early as a subtext thing. Like you can see what his opinions are and what his motivations are, and you're like, I have a feeling where this is going to go, but they let you ride with it for a while. In the comic, it's 2 panels.
Right. Yeah.
Because again, they just
boom. Well, keep in mind this graphic novel is 5 issues, so
but there are multiple volumes. There are multiple volumes.
But
right.
The TV show and the comic both kind of go over the same amount of material, even though they diverge in major ways. There is nothing that showed up in the first season of the show that would be out of scope of what we read if you're looking at these timelines and these storylines at the same.
Right. But, going back to our comparison to Umbrella Academy, I think it's the same idea. It's like the TV show gave us so much more background on the character and also character motivations. The show gave you so much more basis in relationships and who the characters were, like why they make the choices they make. And I just didn't get that from the graphic novel.
Well, and at the end of the day, the show did a lot better job of showing, because they're not even boomers, they're the greatest generation. The first generation of superheroes is everything is black and white. You do not kill, you do not get involved in politics, the code. In every way, Brandon is trying to follow that, and showing that sometimes maybe killing isn't the worst thing in the world, if you're trying to save other people.
When you literally watch the guy kill 2 other people, 3 other people.
Chloe, however, I felt was a really good example of the grit. She's a supervillain. She's, exploring that whole thing. Chloe is holding to the code, by the way, the entire time.
Yep.
Brandon, who has followed the black and white, is the one that has not.
Right.
But Chloe shows that, you see this second generation villain, because he's, his father was branded a villain. So by default, he kind of was. And then he just decided to go with it. Fine, fuck it. But even the villains in this, they have their limits, and they have
they're in the gray area.
They're in the gray area too.
Well,
so everything is pulling more towards the gray. And so the question is Sheldon and especially Sheldon with his, we are in the white, they are in the black. Is he fighting against the black or is he fighting against the gray?
Yeah, Sheldon is in the show, at least. Grace, whom we haven't talked much about.
Right.
Grace is the tempering of the utopian, right? She tries to bring things into perspective for him.
Right.
In fact, I love her character in the show. I think that, I wish there were more from her. But like,
I agree.
She's the one that sort of tries to put things into focus for him. And I wonder if the utopian struggle is not just about the gray, but about his own, it's in the title, but his own legacy. And is he needed in that kind of way?
Is he feeling obsolete?
Because you have all these other people who are doing all of these other things, and the world is changing around him. And I think he knows that some of his principles don't hold up the way that he wants them to.
I think that Grace does a much better job of changing with the flow of time.
Yes.
Whereas Sheldon is anachronistic in a way that is starting to become damaging to those around him. Mm-hmm. Those 1930s ideals, of well, let's get political again. The idea of the pulling yourself back up by your bootstraps, and he lost his father in Black Friday, and all of this, or Black Thursday? Was it Black Thursday?
Friday.
Black Monday. It was
Monday. Thank you. Black Monday was the stock market crash.
But, it's utopian.
Right.
I mean, what is the definition of utopia? It's an unattainable ideal.
Yes, I was about to say, and what happens to everything that tries to be a utopia? A dystopia.
Right.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah. And so in some ways, when I was reading it especially, in some ways I was like, oh, come on, Mark. We have tread these waters 1,000 times before. I get you, and the whole like, we know really this new way of doing things is for the greater good, and it has all fallen apart. And now we're in like a dictatorship. Like, I have been here before, and I sort of got that feeling a little bit in the show, but I felt like they were doing a much better job of nuancing the question, and allowing the characters to live into their problems, live into their questions in a much richer way. And I will say this: so if you look and you read reviews of Jupiter's Legacy, it did not score well, but but one of the things I think that when I was watching it, one of the things I think did that is I have a feeling that people expected a lot more action inside of Jupiter's Legacy, when really it was about relationships, and people walk in and it's a relationships with people who have superpowers, instead of every episode has a major fight, has a major battle.
Right. I fault the trailers for that. Because
very
the trailers
much so.
were very much action.
Yeah,
it's going to be a superhero thing. Superheroes.
The trailers really gave it a Marvel feel.
Yes.
People walked in expecting that happy-go-lucky Marvel storyline, and they did not get it.
I will make a prediction now that I think we're going to see the same thing with the current Hawkeye series. Because the Hawkeye series is about at the core, it's about Clint's family and his relationships with Kate and with all these things going on. Yes, there are action pieces.
Yeah.
There are not nearly as many as you would think would be in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I will wonder if people are like, you made me think about Hawkeye.
Well, I think it's the same thing that happened with Eternals, right? And
1000% agree.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, like, I haven't even gotten to go and see Eternals, but I know, like, Leia and I are planning on like watching it together. And when we were all, Hollywood and all of us were talking about it, I was like, this is the Marvel show Marvel movie that I've been looking for. Thoughtful, relationally oriented, asking questions about philosophy. And people who were watching the Eternals like, it's a little too thoughtful. And I'm like, shut up.
Yes,
that's what we came here for.
Thank you.
So Jen and I went and saw it. And I think
I have not seen it yet. Last one I got to see was Shang-Chi.
Okay. So we went and saw it, and I was like, we'll see. This is not much like I went into Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, this is not something I'm excited about. Like, this is not a part of the Marvel universe, whatever that. It's essentially it is steeped in space Marvel, which is not my favorite.
I'm the opposite side. I love space Marvel.
Yeah. But we went and saw Eternals and walked out going, I understand why this movie had to happen. There's a lot to unpack for the direction that they have to go. Because eventually you have to have the Fantastic Four, and you're really going to break the suspension of disbelief on some of these things if you don't prepare your audience for it. And that's what Eternals was meant to do. And I also know why it did not do well, because yes, it was a lot of thinking, a lot of very little, action. I mean, not very little action.
Can they all fly together and form into a giant brain like they did in the What If comics?
Yes.
They still can.
Yes.
That
is
probably
an omni brain. That is actually an omni mind. That is a thing that is, yeah. However, you do get not only a breakdown in the team, a disagreement on which direction they should go. And it's interesting that you brought up the question about Jupiter's Legacy before, and I'm wondering if that inspired Jen to ask that question, because it does have a lot to do with how they got there and what's going on. But this is a minor spoiler for Eternals. I'm not going to say which character. One of the characters goes, "You're both right," and I'm out, and dips. Like, it's totally like, this is an impossible choice. You can't ask me to do this. I'm just going to go. Whoever wins, great.
I'll be back later.
I'll be back later.
Once you two sort this out, I'll be
Right.
back.
Right. And I,
Which I have never seen in a superhero movie. And I was legitimately excited about. I'm like, that's amazing that you have that, that third option, which is not to choose.
Right. What were you going to say, JR?
well, and that reminds me of Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods, right?
Right.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Like the Cinderella story, like when she's sitting on the steps of the palace, I know what my choice is, which is not to decide. And we'll see what happens from here. But side note, Eternals right now is being written by Kieran Gillen, and I feel like if anyone was designed to write something philosophical like the Eternals, Kieran is the one to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you see things like Die and Wicked and Divine, which supposedly is going to get a show, and as soon as it does, show or movie, if this rumor happens to be true, I will expect demand that I come back for that one, because God, that one is good. But
I have goosebumps right now.
I have this, I think it's sort of sad that popular comic media, and this is not like popular comic media is bad, we need to, like, that's not the statement I'm making.
Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, old man yells at cloud, which is half of my life. But I think it's sort of sad that when a superhero media wants to explore those nebulous gray areas, people reject it. If you read a lot of comics, especially a lot of the most beautiful comics that are out there, even in your major sets like DC or Marvel, they're more willing to explore those things, right? They go this direction. I mean, Bear and I have had this conversation before. It's my first time I was here. My favorite DC character, and possibly my favorite comic character, it depends on the day, is Constantine. And that is all about living in that gray area and having a philosophical conversation about what is right and how do we get there.
Right.
And
do the ends justify the means is a huge topic, because Constantine gets his friends killed all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
And then they haunt him.
They do haunt him. And I think that's one of the things I love about that, is that he doesn't just get to, like, consequence free.
Oh, yeah, no. He lives with the consequences of his actions at all times.
And he understands that that's the consequence. He does it anyway. Because he has conviction about his choice.
Well, and to bring it back to Jupiter's Legacy, I wonder if ultimately that is Brandon and Chloe's story, because Brandon's consequences are not internal. At the end of the day, Black Star is revived, or Black Star is found not to be Black Star. So what did Brandon kill?
Yeah.
And was it really a life? And, and it brings all of those questions, because you're looking at,
how deep does Walter's manipulation
go and all of these other things. But at the end of the day, what are Brandon's consequences? Chloe bears more consequences than Brandon does, because everyone else is sharing Brandon's consequences. Chloe has to stand alone.
Right.
With the exception of her boyfriend, who I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But, I mean, Hitch, yes.
Hitch, yeah.
And
Hutch.
Hutch.
But
Hutch chooses to stand beside her, ultimately.
Yeah, and in the comics, Chloe and Hutch's relationship is, once again, it starts off exceptionally fast, but is very deep and very rich and very beautiful.
Yes.
And in the show, I mean, like, you're moving in that
There.
direction. It's getting there. But and it's another thing, because I never think of Hutch as like a supervillain or even a villain. I think of Hutch as a man of means. Like, he does what needs to be done to survive.
Like I said,
a man who lives in the gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
But like I said, he is given the moniker of supervillain because of who his father was.
Right.
Like, it is guilt by association, which a lot of that also happens in this. So the legacy isn't just, Sheldon's. It's what is the legacy of this entire new generation.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, like, why the kids are so young? Like, why did the superheroes wait so long to have kids?
No, and in fact, so some of the stuff that I kind of read before this episode, just to be like, what did the critics think? One of the big questions is, okay, so Sheldon and Chloe waited, 40 years to
50
bang.
years.
Yeah.
To have kids.
Right.
Yeah. Which actually kind of makes sense because they were too busy being superheroes, whatever. But
they pretty much got together right after they got powers, the way I understand it.
Right.
But also,
and those
so why would
early
Skyfox's kid be the same age? Why are all the kids?
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is, like what we talked about earlier, is where did all the super villains? They talk about they've been fighting super villains or fighting crime or whatever for as long as they've had their powers for. Like, what happened in the middle? Were they just like, were they going out and making their own villains by randomly, sleeping with anything,
That was my point before.
Captain Kirking it, or
so new characters do pop up in Jupiter's Legacy, or I'm sorry, Jupiter's Circle, which is the sequel to this. There's a Jupiter's Legacy 2. There's a whole series past this that I'm wondering if they answered those questions.
Maybe. Well, also, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since I've seen the TV show, but Walter didn't have kids in the TV show, right?
He did. You don't find out that he had a daughter until the very end.
Right.
Oh, that's right. But okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's completely different.
The Asian girl assassin that's also psychic,
right,
is his daughter.
Right. I forgot about that.
I mean, everything with Walter is secret, and
right.
then it's not. I had a thought, and it's now flown from my head, and I will get back to it.
That's why I drink wine to glue them.
Oh yeah, that's
the alcohol glues thoughts to you.
Really it does. I feel like I want to, and I don't know how to do this without spoiling too much, but I'm going to do it. To go back to Chloe. Chloe in the show, I had this thought around episode 3 where she discovers, and I don't know if they ever go into what the fuck this stuff was, but like she discovers like the blue cocaine.
Yeah, the blue rock.
The alien
the blue rock.
cocaine. Yeah.
And I was like, you must really, really have a bad life if the first thought that you have when you see something blue and powdery inside of a bag is snort it. I mean, what are you? It's like Keith Richards overtook her body, and like this is.
It was very Heathers, though.
It was very Heathers.
She did the blue cocaine and then broke the glass table.
Cornet.
Well, I also thought it was by the way, flashed straight back to Lucy.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, she's got a bag of blue rock stuck inside her that slowly starts leaking, and then she gets superpowers.
Right.
I would just like to say that you can always make a Heathers reference with me, because I will enjoy everybody.
I know.
And Barry, you can always make a Lucy reference with me, because that's a great bad movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But Chloe has a similar scene in the comics, but Chloe gets it together in the comic.
Yeah.
Fast, right? She gets it together fast. Now,
again,
there is some
precipitating.
fast, yeah. There's a lot more precipitating events to like sort of snap her into reality.
Yeah.
In the comic, which once again this is my biggest complaint. That catalyst moment, with Walter in the first issue. I think it's in the first issue. Pretty sure it's in the first issue of that graphic novel. In that section is way too fast for me.
Yeah.
And when everything happened, like I was like, they almost lost me. Almost lost me completely. Where I was like, I mean, I'm gonna finish this because I have to. And it picked itself back up when you go into the meanwhile a few years later with Chloe and associates.
Yeah.
Then I picked it back up and was like, okay, this is going somewhere. I'm willing to go with them on it.
We had to tell a little bit of a story here to tell you the story we wanted to tell you over here later in the book.
So this was weird. So to go back to when we were talking about Spawn last episode, this was an Image Comics run.
Yeah.
Image Comics, for some reason, only gave Millar 5 issues for this. And that's why everything's so fast.
Right.
This is it for Jupiter's Legacy. And it wasn't until Jupiter's Legacy was popular And they didn't even continue with Jupiter's Legacy. They went to Jupiter's Circle, which is a whole other, so you already know that you lose readership. You already, unless people are really looking for
Right.
something that is or following or whatever. And that's really the choice that boggles me as somebody that now for 6 seasons we've been going through comic books and we kind of understand the basics of marketing and all of these things that the comic book industry, the fact that we didn't get to the comic book code until recently boggles me,
Right.
and that episode's coming.
Yeah.
But
Be on the lookout.
yeah, right. 5 issues, was that the greatest disservice that this had? Now that we've seen what is it, 10 episodes, 10-hour-long episodes? Can give you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is at the core what we keep coming back to, and what is unfortunately the shortcoming of this comic is everything is way too fast because it has to be.
Right. Yeah.
Because you only have 5 issues, 30 pages per issue on an average comic.
Yeah. It's like 130 pages.
Yeah, it's so it's even less than the 150 that I would have thought. But
oh no, maybe it is. Well, because there were a lot of art pages in the back of this.
10 or 20 pages of art.
Right. So is that the biggest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Millar is trying to create an arc. And I really like, okay, so if we step back and just look conceptually at what his arc is and understand that he had a limited amount of time to try and create the world, create the characters, build the relationships, and then that arc, I appreciate it. And I also see how the TV show was able to be what it was, because there are some good bones here. But it hits the dystopian part too fast.
It way too fast
and too hard.
Too hard.
I just hit, while you were talking, I looked up, I opened up Comixology and was like, okay, so give me a summary of what happens next, right? Like give me an idea. And so they've labeled it. When Imagery published it, they labeled them all as Jupiter's Legacy.
Oh.
In the graphic novels, so it's Jupiter's Legacy volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if you open it up, it says collects Jupiter's Circle.
Okay.
Volumes 1 through 6. But like Jupiter's Circle, the next one that comes up is all about them in the 60s. And then it's all about.
So maybe that explains why that's when they decide to have kids, or that's when they're starting to.
If they have kids that are in their 20s when Obama is president, they did not have kids in the 60s.
Until the 90s. Yeah.
Well, then they talk about the one after that is set one generation after the previous volume. American superheroes have all had children, and that's the one that is the real backstory to what happened in the first one, and then volume 4 is the
Jupiter's Legacy 2, which is the continuation.
Now, were these all written by Millar?
Yeah, they all were.
Okay.
Yeah, this is his baby. Much as so I had to look this up because we also did the Secret Service. So we did Kingsman.
Yeah.
That was 6 issues. Yeah. So think about.
But it was the same. It really was the same.
Many. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is the movie added a lot more characters. It added a lot more interest.
Added a lot more
the world.
It built the world better. I felt. And I think that is, because this is becoming such a recurring issue.
Right.
I think that comics writers have such a monumental task to come up with something that is not only stimulating and interesting and new to their reader base, but to be able to build an entire world and characters within the constraints they're given. As far as, you have 5 issues, you have 6 issues to do this. It's like, are you fucking insane?
Yeah.
They're creating entire worlds, whole cloth.
In 130 pages.
Right.
150 pages.
Yeah, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Right. And, one of my favorites of his is Starlight, which is a 7 issue one. So 7 issues, he gets a lot better. And in that one, it doesn't feel as fast. In those 7 issues, he tells a very nice story and it doesn't feel as fast. But I think also, he knew that, in some ways, he knew that this was just going to be a nice one. Because also the Magic Order is really cool. But Yeah, you're right. Like I can't imagine being told you have 5 issues to tell a portion of the story.
That much story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which makes
so-
sense why your origin portion of the show of the comic is
It's so
5
short.
panels long.
Exactly.
And so
that's my point.
Yeah.
Is I don't want our listeners to feel like we're totally pushing the comics to the side and saying, "Oh, the show was so much better, or the movie was so much better."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well, the movie had the luxury
there are
of taking
reasons.
this base information, this fantastic creation that wasn't like, I feel like is like, it's like you're telling an artist to like create a thing from your mind, but you only have 1 foot by 1 foot canvas to do it.
The
Right.
reason that I discussed this with Bear earlier when he came over before the show, I do very sincerely believe that I would have adored this comic had I not seen the show beforehand.
Yeah.
I would have been
Yeah.
excited about the show, and ultimately the show would have ended up being better for me, and
Right,
and
right.
I would have enjoyed it more. But I would have placed my expectations and my enjoyment a lot higher had I not seen the same media done better. And this is where I'm going to get a lot of angry letters, because
Yeah,
Because
right,
we
right,
get
because,
lots of
because
Yeah.
we get letters at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Write your angry letters to
Because I feel the same way about Cowboy Bebop right now.
Okay.
And I adored that anime. All 26 episodes and the movie. I watched them multiple times. And then the one season of the live action came out, and I was like, well, this is so much better. It's more
More
cohesive.
better, more
Yes.
gooder.
It's more cohesive. The women have agency. It doesn't have any of the parts of anime that drive me fucking crazy.
Well, can I?
You-
can I,
you mean
can
you
I
didn't-
make a
it's not-
suggestion?
Yeah.
no fan service, no cheesecake. Is that what you're
Right,
is that what you're
right.
talking about? Especially with Faye?
But I think that here's my thought, because I've seen episodes of Cowboy Bebop. It was not something that I was really into, the anime. And I could see like glimmers of why it was popular, but it was not for me. I was not the audience for that show. But what I feel like is someone who really loved the anime grew up
Mhm.
and said, you know what would be really cool if we did it as a live action. But I am a fully formed adult now.
Right.
And I understand a lot of the problematic parts of the anime, and I know how to fix it.
Also, 30 seconds of Ed in the live action was too much for you.
So fuck it.
30 seconds. Yeah, 30 seconds of Ed is about right. I have not finished the Cowboy Bebop main series and I live series, and I also really liked the anime and what I've seen of it. Because I like the style, I
Mhm.
love the music.
Oh,
I
I have
I
watched the anime
The music
all the way
is
through.
fantastic.
at least 100 times.
so
Not
I
exaggerating.
I just watched a YouTube video because this is the kind of nerd that you've asked me to come in.
No, all
I-
good. We're the
I
same
just-
kind of nerds.
I just
Well,
watched a
I
YouTube video
am.
where a jazz artist analyzed songs from the Cowboy Bebop thing, and it did some deep dive into the composer who never had any formal training, by the
Yoko
way,
Kanno
and-
is fucking amazing.
and that's where he was like, "This is the best big band I have heard, modern big band I have heard," and she just does it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, she just innately understands jazz.
But is
Yeah.
that not, I mean, come on, is that not the greats of jazz? Some
Yeah.
of them were trained, a lot of them were not. Like the people who were the breakout, they were not jazz artists.
Right.
They were musicians. who
Right.
Had
That was
completely different-
the one part that I missed from. Well, okay, it got put in different ways in the live action. Is in the anime, Jet is a jazz nerd. Like there is a conversation that he has with Spike at one point in the anime where they're in an elevator and he tells them the story about how he had a dream where he had a conversation with Charlie Parker the night before, and Charlie Parker told him to go to a casino and place everything on a certain number. And that's where they are, is in this elevator to go to a casino to do this because Charlie Parker told Jet to do it.
Well, there is a little bit in the live action where Jet is with his partner
and they're debating.
They're talking about
jazz artists.
But they are talking about
Charlie Parker.
There's Charlie Parker. But to go back to it with the I haven't really even gotten into the live action series very well, but I've watched some anime people who I trust in terms of like analysis, and their vitriol about the live action series is amazing. And I can't really even comment on that, but I think what's interesting is I'm with you, sort of. Umbrella Academy was very similar for me, right? Like I tried reading the comic and was like, I do not know where this person, like this is a nightmare. Like what the hell is happening?
I see where they're going, but I don't know why they're going there.
Why they're going there.
Right.
And then I watched the show and was like, this is primo amazing character development and
yes.
writing and music and soundtrack. I was like, this is perfect. This is perfection. I am very excited. And I feel like Jupiter's Legacy wasn't perfection, but I feel like Jupiter's Legacy falls in that same thing. I read them at the same time. Like I read and watched back and back.
Which is definitely something that nobody else on this panel did.
Yeah. No.
So I think all of us watched the show and then read the comics. So I'm really interested in this journey.
Yeah.
So I watched the first two episodes of the show, and then started reading the comic. And for a second, I was like, okay, so it's beat by beat, right? Like here's the thing about Black Star, and here's Walter going into the okay, so we're like and then it just shifted, and I was like, okay, is this what I have to look forward to is it going to go this off rails this fast in the show? So I get back to the show and I'm watching like episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, and I'm like, I sort of like this better. I sort of like where I understand people's motivations more. Then I go back to the graphic novel and Chloe's story kicks in, and I was like, I don't know, I like this Chloe better, right? So there were aspects of both that really work. Mark's treatment of Chloe in the comic is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Agreed.
And her treatment in the show is, I mean, it's getting there, but it's not there together. His treatment of Brandon in the show is so good, but his treatment of Brandon in the comic is not. And it just you can see these characters that he like writes almost completely differently. Even the Utopian in the show, I understood where he was going, like what he was saying, like where I got him, especially when they drag out his backstory. I'm like, okay. And in the comic, I'm like, I got 20 panels with you, and then we're off to something else. Oh, Duke.
But part of that is also the power of an actor, having an actor as opposed to something drawn on a page, because an actor has their face and has, action, and you can identify better with a person than you can a picture.
And is it just me, or speaking of actors' faces, does the Utopian actor that plays Utopian not look just like Jason Taylor?
Yeah.
Our good friend Jason Taylor.
No,
Josh Duhamel.
No, he just.
I think you should. Pull this up after that, and I think you should comment on that later, because I think you'll look at it and be like, "Holy shit!" Especially with the beard.
But the thing we've done. This is the 70th episode of Graphically Novel.
Hello.
I didn't mention that Spawn was 69. Nice.
Nice.
But essentially, at the end of the day, what this show is about is interpreting, art. It is a different art form, is a media art form, and there are bonuses and there are negatives to that. Jen and I just watched. Tom Holland was on Graham Norton this week, and Tom Holland was talking about if he didn't have the Spider-Man mask on and he was acting the exact same way that he acts in the costume, you would think he was a crazy person. And he said the reason for that is, as an actor, removing my face basically handicaps me by about 75%. 75% of what I'm doing on screen you can't tell anymore. So all I have left while I'm acting is these wild motions and these, flailing the arms and all of this stuff. And he talks about how even Peter Parker, when he's playing Peter Parker, the one thing that he does is his arms are dead at his sides at all times. And when he moves them, he's like basically flopping them around, even as Peter Parker. Because when you watch him then as Spider-Man, it looks fluid, which is awesome. But at the same time, you don't have that in a comic book.
Right.
Like, you don't have, you have a fixed facial expression. And you can do some stuff with that if you're a talented artist, but you don't get movement, which is where nonverbals come from, is right. All of your movement. So I'm just always really, at this point, interested in what they're doing with what's on a page and then turning that into how you emote that.
Yeah, and the art of Jupiter's Legacy, the artwork in the comic is, I would say, different because it's realistic, right? It's realism. Oh, it's Frank something or other.
Frank Whiteley.
It's realistic,
but
I'm
not that familiar with as
his
an artist.
Art in this one.
Oh, he did All-Star Superman.
His art in this one is very 1930s comic.
Mm-hmm.
It's that very sort of sketched out watercolor stuff. It feels very old, and I didn't realize that until I went back to think about it. But it has a very old quality to it, and I think that is an excellent way that they subtly placed that feeling into it, and also subverted your expectations, because a 1930s comic may go off the rails, but it doesn't go off the rails like that.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Any other topics for Jupiter's Legacy before we ask our last question? All right, JR, Jupiter's Circle, you've got all of it in front of you. Are you going to continue to read this comic?
I think eventually, yes, because now my curiosity is really piqued as to what he does next, right? When he has the chance to go back and say, here's the 60s, here's a really full story of what that generation, of what the kids' generation looks like, and here's the final battle. I feel like I'm interested to see what he does with it. Because Mark Miller is, and I love the fact that there's no way to pronounce his last name. When he's given a story, and he has time to really flesh it out, he's really good at character development and storyline and plot. So it'd be interesting to see what happens when he does have time.
Right. Jen?
I may, actually, because now I'm really interested in the whole artist being limited and what they do when they're given a little bit more space, So yeah, I may actually go out and read some more of this.
Fair?
I have to. I have to. I'm caught up.
You need to know everything about this.
I'm caught up on all the rest of the reading for the season. I need to know where, there are great big gaps, and I have huge questions. Where did all these other superheroes come from? Besides the direct descendants of the kids, was one or two of them just whores?
Right.
How
slut shaming.
The Captain
dudes
Kirk.
can be whores,
Captain Kirk.
Yeah, they're Captain Kirking it. Where did Black Star come? Why do we have a fusion reactor and we're still fighting over anything at this point?
Energy,
free energy to the entire universe. Fusion reactor. How are we? I have so many questions and they need to be answered. And why did Sheldon have this thing in his head?
Yeah. I would love to know where that comes from.
Led him there, first off, and why isn't it still there?
And what are the aliens' motivations?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, where are they going with this? I will say that I was spoiled with Image Comics. So it's Image and Dark Horse. My intro to comics were Fables, Lock and Key, and then Morning Glories, and that was sort of my big three. So my Image Comics / my intro to comics were long form, and they had all the time in the world.
Was it Lock and Key IDW?
IDW, that's right.
Yeah.
Lock and they had all the time. He had 7 full graphic novels to go through with that one, and then got side stories to be able to do. Got spoiled on that. Fables has
oh my
has
God, Fables
offshoots.
Yeah.
Well,
Fables
yeah, but
is
it had
huge,
a what
huge world.
100 and something episodes. Yeah, I mean
120 issue
issues.
run.
Right, and then and then they got
Beautiful.
offshoots. So
Gorgeous
and amazing. They had time, so it's very interesting to be on a show commenting on something that I didn't realize that he only had 5 issues to tell this stupid story, and so no wonder everything is at a lightning bolt speed.
And the series was stuck somewhere between the beginning of issue 1 and the end of issue 2. We get the TV series.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to be the dissenting opinion here. I will find out from the rest of you, but I'm, for a comic about a superhero being mentally manipulated into a dystopian arena, I'll just read Injustice again.
But see, this is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I love the what's reality and what's not.
Right.
Like how much of this is actually reality? Like how much is
that is
this,
true, yeah.
How much is mental manipulation? How much of this is just someone in their own head?
Right. And I read a lot of other comics that I feel did it better, and I feel that I can be satisfied with
it's not what you like. You don't like Egypt. You don't like knowing what's happening, what's going on. You don't like
I don't like being confused to that level.
Right. And I do.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you can go and hear my one episode I've done of Conversations. I got Mr. Miracle, and if you want to talk about upside down and backwards, and that's the kind of comic that I'm on Jen's side. I do like. One of the things I loved about Morning Glories was that I had no idea where they were going, but it was all philosophy, and I was ready. I was in for the mystery.
So, Mr. Miracle, did you go and read it afterwards?
I have not read it. I have not read it yet because I am finishing a semester, and then there's going to be lots of comic reading. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to read Mr. Miracle because I was like, this is
madness.
Some stuff. It's madness.
Yeah.
Was it the same kind of madness that Secret Wars was? Because I just got done reading that, and I was like,
"No, this is
Are you kidding me?"
Secret Wars actually had a point A to point C plot. This Mr. Miracle is just fucking madness.
What?
Yeah. What is even happening?
And at the end of it, because I did write Conversations. At the end of it, I was like, when they finished telling me the plot, I was like, so even at the end, you don't know if any of this happened.
Right. Yes, it's true. Well, JR, thank you so much for joining us. This was a treat. We will definitely have you again, especially once Wicked and Divine becomes a thing.
Crazy fangirl squealing over here.
Yes.
Insane.
If I hear actual knowledge of this become casts and all this other kind of stuff comes out.
I have to be your first contact, please.
Yeah. I will.
We still need to finish reading it, the whole series. But
I love it.
Very good. So everyone, please tune in next time when we will be doing Doctor Strange, getting into one of the pillar characters, and
getting metaphysical.
Yeah, first time guest Rex Balboa will be with us as well. So that will be interesting. But until
my first GM,
yes,
Rex Balboa.
That's right. And until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but you don't want to see my back.